Easy.
Seán,
We are going to kick off this podcast right now with a couple of things that actually people that know me think I do it all the time, but I actually don't do this a whole lot in the podcast. Eric, I'm going to vent for 2-3 minutes.
hold on, I've not me
I'm about to give people treadmill advice. I'm a little bit wound up because I was booked into a hotel on Saturday night in town. I'm not going to mention where I was or anything like that, but I was waiting 2 hours just to get a pint in a fucking hotel room, and not in a hotel room, at a hotel bar. And then Monday, right now, the end of the weekend, the end of bank holiday weekend, I've had a great time and all the rest. But I decided to put my treadmill together. And I'm telling people right now, the next time you buy a treadmill, don't buy anything less than €1,000 for a treadmill. I spent €800 on this treadmill. I ran on it probably 4 or 5 times. I put my foot through the treadmill. The decking on a treadmill, all it is just wood. It's just a wood base on it. I put my foot through it. How do I know I definitely put my foot through it? Because I had to take it apart today. And as I was taking it apart, the side railings, you would think they'd be screwed on or something, so it's easy to take things on and off again if you don't have to replace belts or replace decks or anything like that. No, this thing is glued on both sides into the thing, so you have to physically rip the whole yoke off. I'm looking for ages ago. It has to be screwed in somewhere. And of course, the girlfriend comes in and looks. I go, Neve, I think this is glued in. She's like, it's not glued in. I'm like, I think this is glued. She knows that I spent £800 in the thing. So she thought, it's going to be a little bit better job than something glued in. This MT1960, I'm not going to tell you what kind of treadmill it is.
No, you will tell us what treadmill.
I just did. It was an body train MT1960. I actually won't mention the company because it's not the company's fault. I bought the treadmill. But anyway, the whole thing was glued onto the side. Eventually get the whole thing off. Get the deck on. You can see the wood's pretty much like it's just ripped right down the middle on it. It's just cracked and up in pieces. It's like a piece of plywood. And the new deck, it's pretty much similar to this desk I'm on right now. So if you've got a home desk at home, and most of us it's just that. Imagine running on that, pounding your feet on that, and considering, like we were talking to Ozzy a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and he says like 4 to 6 times your body weight going through that wood. Even as you hear that, I feel like I'm not that strong, but I feel like I can karate chop my hand right through it. It's the same as fucking deck, man. So I eventually get it all back together, and I've missed dinner at this stage. They're all having dinner. My dinner is the oven. I'm like, no, I'm stubborn. I'm going to get it done. That's it. I finally get it done, and you ring me. And you're on the phone with me, and you mentioned you haven't got the podcast done for this week. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm only half listening to you. I'm like, yeah, I know. I tried to ring you earlier, blah, blah. I'm like, just give me 1 minute. I think I have this done. So I hit the start button, have it all connected up, and you're still talking. I don't know what you're saying. You might tell me later. Hit the start button. It's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The treadmill starts moving. I'm like, okay, it's 1 kilometer an hour. I'm going to go a bit faster. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm like, oh, not too. What's that? And I look, I see the smoke coming up, and the whole thing's burning up on me. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm trying to loosen. I obviously turn the thing off again. I loosen up the belt and everything else. And then I was like, right, I'll give it one more go before we record the podcast. I start getting that thing going again. And it seemed grand till I get 6, 7K. The smoke starts to come up again. And I feel like the whole thing's going to burn. So I'm not too sure. It's friction, something around the motor. I don't know what it is. But like I said at the very start of this podcast, I had a 2-hour wait just to get a pint, a bit of food in a hotel. The main reason we all stay in a hotel is to get a bit of food and a pint right now because all of our pubs are closed at the time. So with that said, I am cracking up in a can of Seán. And we are getting straight into this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. The producer can hit the intro music.
That is the best intro you've ever done in the history of the podcast. I think we should wind you up more often. You didn't even do your stretches or nothing.
Oh, no. Just straight into it. Actually, one reason that I should be wound up because I didn't run with you in the park on morning. How did your run go?
How did my run go? Run's going good. I started out with the whole, sure, I'll do 10K, and then I went on our usual route, and then I cut out a few of the corners we usually add in to kind of keep it going. And then I was feeling good. I was going at a 4:55 5-minute pace, 5:05 pace.
Nice.
And then I headed up towards Farmley, and I got there on time this week. Usually me and Seán are late for our runs. We always say we'd be there at 9. We're not. We get there at 9:30. So I got to Farmley. It was still closed. So I was like, right, well, there goes the 18K. We'll do the 16. And off I went into the forest. And then the usual 10K, I was like, I need to go to the toilet. So I ran back to the Pope's Cross then, where they have some God-sended portaloos there, but that turned into more of a shuffle than a run anyway. But anyway, made it back, and then we toddled off. And because I felt so good about not needing to go to the toilet anymore, I was like, sure, we'll just whack out another 10K. So I went for the 18K then as well. So yeah, really good. But that's happened twice now. So I think
you're in a bad habit there.
I've been eating late. So the common denominator is I've had 2 late big meals, and they've both been Chinese.
There you go.
The night before. And then doing the usual thing, I wake up 15 minutes before I need to leave, and then just I get to the park and then I go. And even though I went to toilet and stuff this morning, so yeah, if anyone is having trouble with that, maybe I'm going to try it this week anyway. Not that anyone needs to really know this, but it's a running podcast, so we might as well talk about stuff that happens, and shit happens really. But so things I'm going to change. I'm going to probably stop eating. My last meal will be at 6, so hopefully by 7 o'clock I won't have eaten. Next morning I'm going to get up 45 minutes earlier than I actually leave to go for the run, and just try and work myself out and kind of get a slice of toast when I get up and give it 45 minutes. Hopefully we'll get out of that system, because it's actually a little bit unnerving when you're kind of like, I don't really want to be stopping 10K into a marathon. And you really want to hope there's a portaloo at that point, because it's so yeah, there's a few little things to tweak. But yeah, apart from that, it was actually really enjoyable. I think most of the country went down to the coast and the west and the south, and the Phoenix Park was actually quite empty for the first time. I was quite surprised, given it was a bank holiday, but it was brilliant. Yeah, it was really nice run. The weather was nice, but getting very comfortable with the pace. So the heart rate, I don't know if you saw, the heart rate was in the 153 average or something like that for a 5:08 pace. So there's definitely a 450 coming in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So, and then so the cycling's really helping with that. A lot of long cycles. Kind of just, I took the bike off the rack and actually got out this week for a couple of leisurely cycles. I wouldn't say they were training cycles as such, but it's still, and everyone kind of goes, even myself was like, I didn't really train hard, but I still put an hour in on the bike. The legs were still moving for an hour. It was comfortable. When we go back a week ago, sorry, I know I'm on a tangent here. No, I stopped last week on a run with you at 12 kilometers because my knee was starting to get a little bit twingy. All week I was doing my stretches, I was doing my exercises, and I was able to train every single day last week because I stopped. I wasn't an idiot. I didn't try and run. I let you off. You came back around. You did your 18. I did my 12. I still got 12K in. It was a workout. It was a run. Any run's a good run. I minded it, stretched it. I just felt when the niggle was starting, and I even said it to you, I was like, tendon is starting to do most of the work here. And I just stopped. I said, see ya. And just waved at you, and off you went. I was raging because I was like, I just wanted to go running with you. But the important thing to know is when you feel those niggles, probably best to stop. Get your stretches in the next day. And then I was able to train all week. I got another 6-7 hours of training in rather than being injured and not being able to do anything.
Well, I mean, like, you're not going to say it, but I will. You ran faster this week than you were running last week when the two of us were running together, because we weren't approaching that 5:05, 5:10 pace. We were near 5:30. And to be honest, I'm not at that level I can push up to that now. I was doing a run today. Now, today's run was just about getting 20K, putting in the legs. So I felt bad not running yesterday. Like I said, too many hours on my feet queuing up for a pint. But anyway, I got my run in on Monday morning, and I just back down in Wicklow. So I started going up towards the mountains, then back down towards the sea and the beaches and all around. So it was just getting the miles and the legs and the terrain. But I think it was, I must have been a 5:30, 5:40 pace maybe. It was roughly 20K and a 150 or something along those lines. So I just want to get 20K. And it's speaking of the number 20, it is the start of if you're doing a 20-week plan towards the Dublin Marathon. This is everyone's week one. This is it now. So we won't know until June 25th. I know I've mentioned that date a few times so far in the podcast, because when it comes to running, that's at the forefront. June 25th is when we're going to announce whether it's going to be a virtual or the real thing. My fingers are crossed on it. If it's a virtual, you said you're doing it.
Yeah, I think either way. And the reason being, and it's something we've chatted about, is I think this year, COVID maybe, I was probably a little bit different in terms of my training in Alabama. I was doing a lot of short, sharp stuff because that's all the time I had. I hadn't got time for the distance. So I found actually getting into the longer stuff little bit better, and I'd nearly say that you would be in a better position for the endurance and marathon than I would be at the minute. But position-wise, we're in the best position we've ever been in to do a marathon attempt. So, and with the half Ironman training that's still ongoing and the pool's opening this week, I think I'll be in a great position to just go out and do one. It'll be a virtual or today. I don't think much transitional training will be needed from the mid-September to bring me to mid-October. I just need to put my bike in the shed and just run more, So it's the endurance level will be there, the heart fitness, the cardiovascular fitness will be there, So it's and not only that, like in the middle distance, you're covering a half marathon after cycling 90k and swimming. So you'd like to think that the legs will be functioning, to take on a marathon. And if it's virtual, will it be a best attempt? Probably not. I don't think so. I think there's a lot to be said for the event. There's a lot to be said when roads are closed. There's a lot to be said when there's a start and finish line. When you're just making it up and watching the rate, and you just pick the person in the luminous orange in front of you, and you see you're gaining 100 meters every kilometer, and you keep picking people off, and there's a lot to be said for it. There is a lot to be said for the event, and a lot of people go out and do a marathon and do great times when it's just them in a straight road. Fair play. But for me, I do like the buzz. I like the kids and the parents cheering at you when you come up this. There's a certain element of that when you see the crowds, you're like, I cannot walk here. My God, I cannot walk here.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. So yeah, I'd be like you, hopeful. So 4 weeks to go to the 16-week plan, and it is around this time people are starting to wonder, can they do a marathon? Nah, it's too late. I should have been training since X, or I should have been training since January, or should have been training since January last year. But that's not the case. It isn't the case. Fitness comes and goes, and like that. If you were to go back 6 weeks ago, I think maybe if we were to listen back in our podcast episodes, I was talking about how I was struggling to hold my marathon pace for 5 kilometers. So it's it definitely comes and goes. And there's an 18k on the weekend, slightly slower than my marathon pace, but we're 20 weeks out, so it's a promising position to be in.
Yeah, no, it's loads of time built, man. I think if people are going to do it, especially because at the moment you can sign up to it virtually. Like you can't, like if the actual physical event goes ahead, you can't do it in person. But there's no real reason you can't sign up to virtual events because they're going off schedule this year. Last year it was just all the events were on one day, whereas I think the end of July is your 4 mile run or whatever it is. Maybe it's like the 10k run, and then it goes up to 10 miles and then a half and stuff like that. But even using those as guidelines, to build towards maybe the following year doing a marathon or something, you go, okay, let's see, can I get to that 10k at this point? And let's see how far I'm away from doing a virtual half marathon in the middle of September and going from there. Just to switch gears on this one, because I'm probably like, Jesus, Sean, I hope this 25th June announcement gets done, because you can show up at the marathon and actually just train for the thing, or not train for the thing, hope we're a virtual idea instead. And I'm not really thinking either or until that comes up. You mentioned there gyms and stuff are back open. I'm just going to lean it back more into my world, because the last couple of weeks we've got into young world and agreed 100% with you with the easy running and build up towards going your endurance and everything else in there. But gyms are opening back up, and I think they complement really well. I was listening to a podcast there recently, and I was always finding it hard to not justify strength training and cardio work, because I do think they balance and they work, but just some people might look at it and go, okay, if I'm doing strength training, I'm going to get big and bulky. If I'm going to do cardio, I'm going to get leaner, and which is not technically true. And I just found it hard to show how muscle's leaner and fat is just obviously it's less dense than muscle. And one of the things I heard was, let's say you do just cardio. And you want to lose, let's say a stone. Let's say you want to lose a stone, and you do just cardio, nothing else except that. You will probably be a smaller version of yourself, which sounds great, when losing that stone. But your body fat mass won't change too much. It'll change very little in comparison to if you did gym work and strength training. But if you went the same time, you might lose 10 pounds of let's say fat, and then you might lose, you might gain 5 pounds of muscle. and it's a case of, okay, hang on a second, I'm only losing 5 pounds in total, and the scale's not going to look great. But because of the muscle, that's the toning part, even though that's not necessarily true. You're not going to get bulky on it because not all of us have the genetics of the Rock or Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're going to get leaner because your muscle is going to be dense, but it mightn't show up that way in the scales. And the way to really work the muscle is to do the gym work. With the cardio, if you can find a combination of the two, probably not at the same time, I find that will work towards your goals. Like we always say as well, the goal overall shouldn't just be fat loss. It should be, okay, let's say we're doing running. It should be maybe build towards running your first 5K, running your first 10K, rather than just going off the scales. And then if it's strength training, it shouldn't be, trying to get weight as well. It should be, okay, I want to get my first full push-up in, my first full pull-up in, or I want to be able to do X amount of lunges with a certain amount of weight and stuff like that. And when you start setting little goals when you're back in the gym, along with doing separate days for the runs, that's where you're going to start seeing your goals, and eventually it'll come up in the scales.
Yeah, it is a funny one. Something I struggled with a long time. Two things I've struggled with that really beat me up. One, losing my hair. That did for a couple of years get it. And two was being bigger. And the combination of losing your hair and being fat was a massive driver for me. And people always say as well, like, oh, but you weren't fat. You carried it well. I was 6'3" and a bit, so you wouldn't notice. But 107 kilo wasn't light, and it wasn't a comfortable place with me. And it was something I took personal to myself. And that was something I found really good in the sense that I didn't do any. I was doing bits of cardio, but if you remember back to then, Seán, I just went lifting weights. I went lifting weights twice a day. I'd do my legs in the morning, I'd do my chest, and every 12 hours I was working another body part for 30 days as well, with a crash diet, which I don't really agree with. And looking back on now, probably wasn't the best. It made a major change, but I was lucky I had a good plan for after it. But for me, and I suppose we always talk about the running side of things, and what we don't talk about is the extras we're doing. Everyone will see that I've ran 18K. No one saw that I did 5 single leg squats on each leg before I went on the run. Nobody saw that I did a couple of push-ups and stretches. No one sees the little extras that I'm doing. I'm not lifting weights. I'm not in the gym lifting weight. One, I don't have lots of weights. I have a couple of dumbbells to make me feel good. But most of the stuff is body weight. It's functional movement stuff with body weight. There's the added extras that without that extra tone in the muscles, like I'm not going to be big. I'm not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll have me little arms and me chicken legs, but the muscles will be in the right place. They're denser, as we've just mentioned. We're 5-6 times our weight hitting the ground every time. You have to have that muscle function around it, that dense muscle, to kind of take some of that impact as well. It is a lot. People don't really see that. It's probably we don't really mention it enough, and they really do complement each other.
Like when I talk about gym work, I don't mean you got to go in there and get 250s to start lifting them up on the incline and going for whatever. That could be body weight push-ups, could be body weight lunges, could be body weight squats, that kind of thing, and then adding some sort of adaptation so it gets a little bit harder. Just like you're on the road, you'll eventually start building up your pace. You can't just do 10 squats and 10 push-ups and leave it at that all the time. Eventually you have to slowly start adding to it. But having that combination with the cardio, if your goal is fat loss, just don't think of the figures, because your scales could say the similar thing. But like you said, when we were training back in 2014, that summer, 2015, that entire summer, your scale probably didn't drop anywhere as low as what you are right now doing cardio with a bit of strength training. But if someone looked at you and I was with them beside you, because the ego hurt my end, they were calling you, I know we're trying to keep it clean, but big brick shit house door, they were calling you. And I was just standing there going, hey, I'm training with him too. What am I like, trying to widen the shoulders and the elbows out and all the rest. But your scales wouldn't have changed too much. So I think a lot of things are put too much on the scales in terms of that, especially doing strength training with it. And you won't get bulky if you are doing strength training, because we just don't have the genetics, probably not eating anywhere near the calories to keep adding on from there. Not Simone like the Rock, but there's all different things that could come into play when it comes to that. It was just when I heard that about the analogy about muscle being denser, and that it's going to affect the scales. And to be honest with you, I butchered the way he said it because the way he said it was a lot more crystal clear. I was just kind of like, I'm pausing here to make sure I say it right. I mean, if you lost a stone just through cardio alone, it's great, but the body fat will stay the same. Whereas through strength training, resistance training, that'll start changing your body fat. The muscle mass will go up. Once again, you won't get bulky, but the muscle mass will go up. But because it's dense, it'll be heavier, and the fat will go down. And then you are burning more body fat after doing strength training, whereas with cardio, it kind of stops once you've done it. You'll burn more during the exercise doing cardio, but then afterwards it's different then. And then we get more economical with our cardio thing. So for example, me and you first did 18K. We would burn a ton of calories, whereas now when we run 18K, that calorie number is not going to be the same because we're more efficient doing it. Your heart rate is going lower and lower and lower. Your body's getting easier to do those runs. So for you to burn the same amount of calories, you would probably have to do more distance. And if you base it on that, you're going to drive yourself up the wall.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, you do, like, as you get fitter, you have to keep pushing yourself more. And that's why you'll see on Wednesday last week, I think, or Tuesday, you did your 5K best effort, and I just went out and said, all right. I was supposed to be intervals, and I was like, no, let's just see if I can see how I go, and it's pushing the body in ways, just to keep it burning, I suppose, to match the food I'm taking in to the lifestyle I'm living now with the training regime I'm on. And it's also another key thing a lot of people are looking over. Everyone is looking for the thing that's going to change them, the thing that's going to, just switch their life. It's any of these things that you do is a commitment to yourself. It's a change in your lifestyle. It's a change. Like I ate a packet of Lidl's movie mixed jellies. I ate 4 twirl bars, but I burned 3,500 calories that day before 6 o'clock. That was after the 18K. I don't know what it was because I didn't check. I was like, but it would have went up to 4.2 maybe. It would have been the final day because I went for a walk that evening as well. So I can afford to do that, and that's my lifestyle, and that's how I've built my life around my weekends and treat nights and stuff. But there's another thing that people are kind of, and it's a little thing as well. I know we're talking about marathon programs. It's 16 weeks. It could be a 4-week diet. It could be a 3-week training plan. It could be 21-day abs, whatever it is. That's perfect doing it for the 21 days. When your motivation is high and you have something to do, what happens after the 21 days? And that's the important thing. A lot of people go, take a working week. They'll start the diet on the Monday and the exercise. Really good. Hits Wednesday, feeling absolutely goosed, tired, work is on them. They're trying to monitor their calories. They're trying to exercise more than they've ever exercised. They hold on for dear life. Thursday comes, this has been a great week. I'm feeling good about myself. They work out again. Friday comes, rest day because it's been a long week. Sure, I'll have a beer and I'll have a takeaway. I deserve it because I've worked hard all week. Saturday comes, I didn't really catch up on all my stuff during the week. I might just take the day off and watch a movie and go over and see a boyfriend. Sunday comes, sure, I lost yesterday. And sure, look, it's Monday tomorrow. I'll pick it back up. Yeah. 90% of people live that way. And there's only 10% of people who go Monday to Friday. Well, actually, I'm really busy during the week. I'll leave the half-hour session and I'll add it in on the Saturday. It's that consistency we always mention. Everyone can be great Monday to Thursday when everyone is in work and when everyone is doing their things and when kids are going training and the routine is there. It's when you are left to your own devices on the weekend, when all the diets and the trainings are done. What do you do? What do you do with your extra time? That's your lifestyle. Are you going to go for the hike? Or are you going to go and do something else? You're going to go day drinking, that's your lifestyle. For me, you're having a beer tonight, Seán. I haven't had a beer in 4 weeks or 3 weeks. It's just my new lifestyle. I'll have 4 Coke Zeros and feel terrible about it. Yeah. But go back 4 months ago, I would have had 10 vodkas and Cokes and wouldn't have blinked twice at it. I know I feel bad for drinking 4 Cokes. It's just what you do after your working week. What's the consistencies? There's this little thing as well that I like to do as well is the 2 or 3 day rule, depending on where people are at. If you make a mistake today, don't repeat it tomorrow. If you overeat today, don't overeat tomorrow. If you miss today's workouts, don't miss tomorrow's. There's a 2 day rule or 3 day rule that can kind of keep people on track. And that will avoid people ruining their weekends. When it gets to Thursday, they're like, that's it. And then they've only really worked for 4 days and then 3 days are terrible. And they completely undo what they've done during the week, and they overdo it because they're like, well, sure, I've done all this during the week, and they actually get worse. You know, it is a funny one. It is something we're talking about, and consistency and muscle building and plans, and people worried about losing weight. You have to look at your lifestyle. You have to think, like, what am I doing in my everyday? And if you want to keep doing that and go on your day drinking, you need to be coming out and running 18K with me on a Sunday morning. And that's just the simple fact of it. You know, if you want to live to that excess, then you have to kind of put in the work in somewhere else, or something in your lifestyle has to be looked at.
100%. It is about finding that balance. Like I enjoy a few beers, but like I said, like even talking earlier about that's not like, man, I had 3 pints and I was in bed by 11, half 11. I was passed out of sleep. I was up the next morning. I was like, right, let's go. and that was it. But like, you have your, it is about finding that balance where, you know, sometimes you're having a few beers or whatever, and if sometimes a few jellies here and there, and we all have our different, you know, sweet tooths or all our little vices and stuff like that. And you can't cut out every single vice, because I think you'd just be driven up the wall. You do need that kind of, you just go, sit back, relax. You know, you're watching Netflix, and you know, you yourself is the jellies or whatever it is. Myself is 1 or 2 beers, and that's it. Like, but having that balance, and then when you get back to your training, it is having those goals to get you through. Because if it is one of those things where you're basing it on the scales, or you're basing it on just the mirror, stuff like that, that's very hard to judge what you're getting out of each and every session. Whereas like you're talking about today, or sorry, on Sunday morning, I'm going out, build up towards, okay, I got the 18K. I was at a 5:05, 5:10 pace. Now you've got something for next Sunday when we're back in the Phoenix Park. Okay, I was a 5:05, 5:10 pace. Let's see if we can build on a little bit, or maintain that, or slowly start building from there. Now the mindset is shift of, what can I do to add on to it? Not I have to do this. And I don't, like we talked about when we were running there a couple of weeks ago in the park. It's not like, we have to do 18K now. It's like, right, what can we do out here? And the time goes by much, much more quickly, and it's not torture. And if that sounds like torture, you either have to build up your runs if you want to do running, or find something else where it does give you that challenge that makes you go, okay, I've cycled 40K this week. You know, maybe we can get 40K a little bit faster, or maybe we can get 42, 45K next week, and start making those little goals and keep adding on from there. And everything else will come with it. And it's gonna, I don't mean to brag or anything like that, but like, I'm close to being like in the best shape I've been in. And I genuinely, I don't base off the scales, but just, well, there's a thing of work where we have like a body fat percentage, not BMI, but it has a body fat, muscle mass percentage, and all the rest, and protein, everything else comes into it. And that is the lowest in terms of body fat, and the highest in terms of muscle mass that it's ever been. But I don't think about diet or anything like that, because over time, little things start adding on. And as long as everything you're doing is sustainable, and you have that little bit where you challenge yourself that little bit more each week, you will eventually get there. I'm not where now where I want to be, but eventually I know I'll get there.
Yeah, and it is one, like, if you were to look at me, and obviously it's a podcast, but unless you're looking at us on Instagram, you know, I look like a beanpole, I suppose, if you're but you know, if I was to take my kid off for an extra point, OnlyFans page starting next week. No, if we were to strip off, I'm probably carrying the most body fat I've carried in a while, and the least muscle mass I've probably had in a while. Oddly enough, that's my alarm telling me to wake up. We're probably carrying the least muscle mass I've carried in a while, and the most fat, and it's by choice. You know, as we've talked about, we're looking to get into the endurance game, and my heart rate's in that zone where I'm burning fat, not sugars. You know, and look, I'm comfortable with it, and we've spoke about it before. You can't train like a show pony and try and run like a racehorse. You know, like it's just the composition that I need, and it's working. You know, and it's I was trying to be the jack of. It's the thing that I've done different this year. It's I tried to be the jack of all last year, lifting weights, doing this. It just doesn't work for me. It just really doesn't work for me. It doesn't agree with me, and it's part of what you have to figure out as well. And like, I won't be impressing anyone at the beach, but you know, if you put a pair of runners on me and let me off for a while, people probably can't do the same thing, you know. And that's where you just have to have your little wins. What are your goals in a year's time? Like, what do you want to say about yourself? What kind of an athlete you want to be? What kind of person you want people to say about you? Oh, they're always, you know, they're really consistent. They're always working out. They're a healthy person. You know, at the end of the day, you have to decide what you want to be said about you. And that's what a great driving factor for me. I don't know what gets you through, but I know that a lot of people, when I say that, well, look, if we were to talk to you about you in a year, what would you like us to say? Oh, sure, they're always on the beer, or like it is a little driving factor, and it's again, we always mention the ego. I'm happy enough that I've let mine go, and I'm carrying that little extra fat, but I don't look fat, but I notice a little bit more, but it's perfect. It's exactly what I need, and that's how that's part of the training.
You keep on, you're building up each week, and you're getting closer and closer towards your goal. So and you're happy with it. So why would you change? You're clearly on the right track to what you want to do. So why would you switch that up?
Yeah, and it's
for the sake of ego, like
exactly, and it is just that, and it's just, I suppose, our tangent, and probably Seán, what people may or may not be understanding is, don't judge yourself off others. Mm-hmm. Seán will have an 8-pack. I'll have an 8-pack of Heineken. It's you don't judge yourself off others. It's depending on what your goals are. People you don't know what mileage they've put in or what work they've put in to get to that point. Some of it's genetics, some of it's just consistency. You have to just judge yourself from your starting point. You have to see what your goals are, and you have to be realistic about them. Like the bank holiday weekend, some people just took time with their family. It's been a long lockdown. That's okay. And it has to be there. It has, you can't hold yourself, feeling bad about it. Like you took today off. I went and ran anything. Yeah. You felt bad, so you went out and did it today. But that's just our thing, and but yeah, it's just try not to judge others about how you feel. Be comfortable in your body. Understand the body that you have and what it can do for you. And as we've talked about with the muscle and the body fat, and if you are weight conscious, these are just things to consider as you're moving forward to try and change that lifestyle, try and change that mentality that you may or might not want. And if you don't want it, you have to be realistic about what you're trying to achieve. If you don't want to be that fitter person or that kind of more health conscious person, you're going to do your 6 weeks and you'll be back onto it in square one, and we'll see you again in January, and that's just who you are. That's the truth.
Yeah, it's just a crash. It's just and it is that kind of get the best shape of your life in 6 weeks, and it's just totally unsustainable stuff like you're talking about. And then once it's done, it's kind of like they've nowhere else to go. And the extreme example of that would be your Biggest Loser type challenge and stuff like that. We see them drop all their way through the cardio. They have someone shouting at them, do 2-hour sessions, and they're depriving them of food all the time. And of course they're fucking dropping all this weight because they're eating like, they were eating like 5,000-6,000 calories a day, and now they're eating like 2,000 or 1,500 calories a day, and all of a sudden and they're training 3 hours a day, having someone shout at them all the time. It's like, yeah, when you go out into the real world, is that going to happen? No, it's not. But you're not teaching people how to do that. So that's a tangent on that. We'll probably save for another day. But the whole point is that was not sustainable. And that's why there's actual studies showing how the majority of those people put back on the weight. They just crush their metabolism, and that weight comes back on for majority of those people. And it's awful to see that they're not, that it's not more taught. So if you're doing any sort of challenging like that and you can't see how this could be sustainable long-term, or how it's building towards something sustainable long-term, that proper kind of lifestyle change, then you need to back up and get out of it. If it's a case of, hey, have these shakes and stuff like that, you lose all this weight, trust me, that weight will come back on, and you'll probably come on worse because your metabolism will be crushed.
Yeah. Look, the best advice I can give people, and it's one that I would believe in strongly, sort out your diet first. Be realistic. Everyone will download my fitness pal. Like, I want to lose 2 pounds a week straight away. Females, 1,200 calories. That's all you can eat. And it's hard. It's not easy. So why don't you go for what you weigh now? And then something I always go with, pick a kilo less and lose it in the minimum weight loss per week as you can. That will give you realistic food goals for every day. Yep. Once you master your diet, then you get used to the different foods you like, you don't like. Your shopping trolley, that's your biggest training session for the first 2 weeks of any lifestyle changes, training with your shopping trolley. If you're in there and you're putting good stuff into the trolley, you're putting that onto the plate. You're getting your veggies, you're getting your proteins, I don't really like cucumber. Right, we won't try that. We'll try something else, or, aubergine grated instead of pasta just to fluff out the meal. There's all these different things that you can go and do. When you master that over the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks to kind of start building a habit, then you can start going, oh, maybe I can start training a bit harder. Because if you're trying to train for that hour and manage your diet and do this, it's a lot of work. So you
So
will
much at
survive
once.
it for the 6 weeks. You will survive it for the 6 weeks. And after that 6 weeks, you're like, screw that, chipper. Nah, not going for me. What? I've done it myself. I've been the biggest culprit of that for years. But now that I've mastered my diet, I know what my body likes, I know what it doesn't like. I know my quick, easy meals that will avoid going to chipper. I've worked with the food over the last few weeks, months. And now it's easy for me to go do the 18K because everything else is kind of sorted. I don't even have to measure or weigh my food anymore because I'm used to the portion sizes. I'm used to the calories I need. So don't be hard on yourself. Don't try and bite off all of it, pardon the pun with the diet and exercise, but try and just give yourself a realistic goal to maintain your weight. Get used to what calories is at that weight. And if you're eating clean food, you'll probably scare yourself with how much food that actually is because you'll be like, oh, I actually don't think I can eat all this. And then you'll naturally start dropping calories because you're trying to maintain your same weight with cleaner food, and it's just not possible. It's one element I found was trying to eat 3,000 calories clean. I was eating 7 times a day. It was just like, this isn't realistic.
Yeah.
So and that's how I know what's realistic for myself. So that's probably, we've covered a wide range of topics. We've given out about hotels, which you haven't mentioned, which I would, scumbag. But we've given out about treadmills. We've talked about poos on runs. We've talked about losing weight, muscle gain. This has been a lot of stuff that's built up over the last weeks with different things that we've been getting used to and working with, and it is. And I think everyone's worried about this summer body, and summer is here now. So they're like, next year. You should be worried about your winter body because summer in Ireland is the best time to work out. It's the best time to get outdoors. It's the best time to try any lifestyle change. So it's a good time to actually start thinking about what it is you want to do, because when you develop that little love for it while the days are sunny, when it's a little bit rainy, wet, and miserable, you're more likely to go and give it a go because you like how it makes you feel. So you should start thinking now, start training now for the winter, build up the tolerances and find out what you like while the weather is good.
Sun's out, we feel good. On that note, I want to see if that treadmill is still smoking and my can's out. So, guys, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the Any Given Day podcast. Eric, anything else to add before we wrap this one up?
Nah, we've rambled way too much.
Apologies, it was too much rambling for this week. We'll hope to have guests back on the podcast over the next 2 weeks on the podcast. That's it for the two of us. Take care.
Bye.